2022.
Members' motion with no legislative effect. The Honourable Nixie LAM will move a motion on comprehensive movement of Hong Kong's play equipment for children. Two members will move amendments to the motion. This council will proceed to a joint debate on the motion and the amendments. Later, I will first call upon the Honourable Nixie LAM to speak and move the motion. Then I will call upon the Honourable Ka-piu and the Honourable Man-kwong to speak in sequence, but they may not move amendments at this stage. The joint debate now begins. Members who wish to speak, please press the request to speak button. I now call upon the Honourable Nixie LAM to speak and move the motion. President, I move that the motion as printed on the agenda be passed to urge the administration to improve comprehensively Hong Kong's play equipment for children. Some may wonder how, being a member from FC, I will move this motion related to the whole territory. Because play is very important to children, childhood will have a profound impact on a child's development and his adulthood. Now, physical and social, cognitive, creativity, and problem-solving abilities, building up of confidence, all these soft skills cannot be acquired in classroom learning or from Zoom learning. Now, the government would want Hong Kong to develop creative industries, and in the education sector, we want our children to have entrepreneurship. The question is whether we provide a creative environment from them from childhood to explore and learn. Our playgrounds used to be simple and fun, but starting from 1990, playgrounds usually have proprietary modular multiplayer equipment. Safety is of paramount importance. There is no challenge and no creativity involved. It's boring. Take our slides as example. 99% of them are less than 2 meters tall. This is very similar to sliding down from the knees of your father. Now, we have spent so much money to buy play equipment. How are we going to train the cognitive and coordination skills of our children? Our children lag behind in balance, and some have sensory integration and coordination problems. So these play equipment that are not serving their function have profound impact on our children. LCSD operates over 600 playgrounds. That may sound a lot, but then the distribution is very uneven. Now, if you look at the area of playground per district, in Central and Western District, there is 0.55 square meters per children, but Kwai Tsing has only got 0.16 square meters, 3 times different. This goes to show that in Hong Kong, even for play space, there is inequality. Those who can afford it, they can spend hundreds of dollars, and they can even fly to Japan for fun in playground. But for grassroots families, they have no choice. They can only go to boring and bland play equipment in our public parks. So in terms of experience and social development, our children will suffer because of their family background. We have children in Hong Kong that lose out even at the start line, and this is unacceptable in a city like Hong Kong. So we should expedite the process of improvement to our playground run by LCSD. But other facilities such as public space, harbourfront promenades, idle land, and housing department land, we can address this inequality. We should also revise our Hong Kong planning standards and guidelines. For the sake of our younger generation, we must have different types of play spaces for our children based on the districts and characteristics, so as to time with the population needs of a society, of a community. And there must be proper management. Creative play equipment need to be properly managed. And we should change our mentality from planning, construction, and management, repair and maintenance. They are all related. I have discussed with people in the sector and also with management staff of parks. Many creative designs cannot be implemented because of objection from management staff. Well, you may say the civil servants are like that. What more can you expect? Is that really the case? Many management staff of parks are very committed. They want to have a fun play space for children. It's just that they don't understand the equipment. They worry about the need for repair and maintenance. This is normal. Now, for more popular playgrounds, wear and tear is more serious and more frequent repairs and maintenance is required. So can the administration change the establishment of management staff and also provide sufficient funding, so long as the government can go an extra mile and provide training for the management staff, the problem can be solved. And we should also redefine playground in the whole community. The value of play and also benefits to children's development should be considered together to ensure that money is well spent. We can really provide creative and diversified play spaces for our children. The ASD in 2019 July commissioned a consultancy called Guide and Design for Children Play Space. It has got definition for a children playground, the design, risk assessment, and benefits, etc. This is not an open document. We cannot access it online, but the document can be good reference for management of public and private housing developments and public and private space. It can provide a new vision. I suggest the administration make it available to the public for reference. The purpose of the motion is to let you know that this may seem a minor policy, but it's going to impact on our whole future generation. I hope that the government can take this opportunity to consult widely and have better planning so that our children would not lose out at the start line. We shall return fun and play to our children. With these remarks, I urge members to support me.
I now propose the question to you that Ms. Nixie LAM's motion be passed. Mr. Ka-piu. Madam Deputy, I fully support Ms. LAM's motion. I have two children. One is 13, the other is 3, and I have to spend time going to the playground with them. So we have hands-on experience on the quality of different playgrounds in Hong Kong. One of my former colleagues, Mr. Jonathan Ho, wrote a proposal on children's playgrounds, and he spoke from his own experience visiting playgrounds with his children. So I would now offer my views. According to the Hong Kong planning standards and guidelines, for every 5,000 people, a children's playground with an area of 400 square meters should be built. For the 550 playgrounds and the 5,000 playgrounds managed by the Housing Authority cannot meet the needs of the children. There are very few children's playgrounds that are as fun as the one at Tuen Mun Park. That is why in my proposed amendment, I talked about the right to play. All along, facilities in Hong Kong were built based on the HKTSP, but we did not give any regard to play strategy, and the focus for children is on homework or schoolwork. The central government has implemented a policy to reduce students' workload on homework, and instead they have shifted the focus on play, development of aesthetics, etc. So are we doing anything in this regard? Inclusion to us is very important. So in terms of cultural or ethnic diversity, catering for the physical differences in children, these should be considered in children's playgrounds or playrooms, as well as play equipment. That way, our children would get used to playing with children from different backgrounds, and that is a key point. For children playrooms currently managed by the LCSD, we often see long queues even in the older districts such as Wang Tai Sin in Kuntang. People or users have to wait up to an hour to get in. Some people ask whether the children playrooms must be situated within sports centers. I think the answer is no. So long as we can find a space, we can accommodate playrooms. Some of the children playrooms are too small. They are substandard. For the Choi Hong Road playroom, each session can only accommodate 4 families or 8 people maximum, and that would not be a very fun experience for the children. As for LEUNG REIT, the Housing Authority divested its facilities, and that gave rise to a major issue. For leisure facilities managed by LEUNG REIT, they are always reluctant to include such facilities if that would cost money to manage. And if safety issues are concerned, that is, if there's any possibility that claims could be lodged by users, then the LEUNG REIT would simply cordon off the facilities. In some cases, the LEUNG REIT stopped organizations from renting their facilities. So we can see that play is very important for our children. And that is why in my amendment, I hope we can introduce more play spaces for our children. Mr. Leung Man-kwong. Madam Deputy, as a father, I'd like to thank Ms. Nixie LAM for moving her motion on improving Hong Kong's play equipment for children. Play is highly beneficial to children. Through play, children can exercise their imagination and they can feel a sense of satisfaction through play. The public play spaces would allow children to explore themselves, and they can train up different abilities. And in terms of inclusion, according to the LCSD, 70% of their playgrounds include inclusive facilities to cater for different children, including those with disabilities, and there are 41 of them according to the SCSC. But does inclusive design only include accessibility? Many parks are installed with ramps, and in Kowloon West, only Kowloon Park is equipped with ramps for wheelchair users. As for Kowloon East, only the Yutwa Street Playground has a set of facilities that would cater for handicapped children. Public playgrounds should accommodate children of different backgrounds. That way, they can learn to communicate with and work with each other through play. But the fact is, our facilities could not cater for children with different needs. The designs of the playgrounds are monotonous, and they are too boring. And the UNICEF commissioned the University of Hong Kong in a questionnaire, and these results show that most parents and children found the playground designs too monotonous. Very often, internationally recognized components are adopted in the designs, and such playgrounds are easier to maintain, but the designs tend to be monotonous. So the playgrounds are like cookie cutters. They all look the same, and that would lead to limited interest from children. So can we go beyond slides and swings in parks? Can we have other possibilities? A park in Macau is equipped with a rink for scooters, and they have proved very popular with children. Hong Kong has a number of road safety playgrounds, but their designs are again very similar, and there's a lack of variety. By learning from other regions, we can make our facilities more appealing for children. The original motion talked about Tuen Mun Park. It is an inclusive park that is accessible for all, and it was one of the first parks featuring an inclusive design, and many facilities could be used by wheelchair users, including tactile and music areas. They provide different experiences for children, and they cater for children with different physical capabilities. I support the original motion in that we should draw reference from existing parks and to enhance our playgrounds. Children know best what they like, and the same could be said for their parents. That is why in my amendment, I propose collecting the views of different stakeholders, especially children. That way, we can truly understand the needs and experience of users. Tuen Mun Park was the first playground in Hong Kong to feature an inclusive design, and with such experience, the government can consider whether the inclusive designs are sufficient to achieve its purpose, and we should come up with community playgrounds featuring different designs to create happy experiences for children. Thank you.
Secretary for Home Affairs, Madam Deputy, members, first of all, I would like to thank Ms. Nixie LAM for moving the motion. I would like to thank Mr. Ka-piu and Mr. Man-kwong for moving amendments to the motion. The Special Administrative Region Government takes a very serious view about the children's play equipment, so that within the playgrounds there will be different types of facilities for children of different age groups and different interests to play together. And then through the use of the equipment, they can learn different skills so that they will balance and comprehensive development physically and mentally. The LCSD has always been trying hard to provide play spaces that are diversified, creative, and interesting, so that children can enjoy playing there, so that they can develop mentally and physically, and there will be interaction with other children. To respond to the public's demand to have more challenging and interesting children's play space, at the time of planning, the LCSD will acquire inclusive, interesting, creative, and challenging play equipment, taking into account the needs of children of different age groups and abilities, as well as their parents. In year 2018, the Architectural Services Department carried out a consultancy study in relation to children's play space, and on the basis of the outcome, they have developed a design guide for children's play space. The LCSD has adopted many recommendations therein so as to enhance and transform their public play space. Say, for example, challenges and interests of different degrees, more elements from the nature and touching on environmental protection, and their tailor-made equipment. There will be a higher degree of community participation, and there's the encouragement of creativity, non-prescriptive play stations, as well as flexible scenarios are being provided. The design embodies the ideas of inclusiveness in terms of able-bodied and disabled persons, different family structures, different ethnic groups, different age groups, and different sexes. Well, in order to have new ideas into design, the LCSD in the same year has also transformed the children's play space in the Twin Moon Park, and it has become an inclusive playground. And we have got the themes of sand and water, so that the disabled children as well as the able-bodied children can play together. And in fact, the design ideas are the outcome of the participation of the public, including designers, related organizations, and students, through an open design competition. And in fact, it has been popular among children and their parents. When the LCSD builds new public play spaces, the LCSD will adopt the recommendations of the consultants in the study, and the same creative ideas will be adopted so as to make the playgrounds more creative and interesting. And examples are like the Ka-piu Runway Park, Ka-piu Waterfront Park, Hong Kong Children's Hospital section, as well as Ka-piu East Park. In fact, all of them have been hugely popular. In the light of the positive response to the transformation of the inclusive children's play space at Twin Moon Park, in 2019, the policy address made an announcement about the 5-year plan to transform 170 facilities under the management of the LCSD. And in fact, we base our work on the recommendations on recent research reports as well as the children's play space at Twin Moon Park. We are going to spend nearly $700 million on this 5-year program to transform the PPS, that is the public play spaces. In the course of transformation, we have been holding workshops, carrying out questionnaires, and using other means to invite stakeholders to tell us what they think, like children, parents, and carers, so that we will have feasible and suitable designs and equipment so as to cater for the needs, and they have different themes. And then the progress is good. In the year 2020-21 as well as 21-22, 17 and 26 transformation projects have been launched, respectively. For the first 5 items, they're expected to be completed within this year, and then the rest will gradually be launched and completed. For Samshapo Park, it is a major project. This is a very large-scale public play space, and the transformation is underway, and we intend to complete the work before end of this year, and it will be one of the largest public play spaces. Well, as far as the children's playrooms are concerned, there are 41 children's playrooms in 39 indoor venues spread over 18 districts under the management of the LCSD for children under the age of 9, including young children as well as preschool children. They have got different themes like dinosaur, deep ocean, forest castle, and outer space. They are colorful, and they are catering for the needs of the young children, toddlers, as well as the preschool children, so that when they play, they can also give free play to their imagination and creativity. Staff members will be inspecting the facilities to check if there is a need to upgrade them in a timely fashion. When the LCSD plan for sports centers, we'll try our best to increase the number of children's playrooms. And in fact, when we build and renovate existing indoor children's playrooms, the LCSD will adopt the same guidelines for transforming PPS. There will be a lot of creative, challenging, and interesting facilities. According to the Hong Kong Planning Standards and Guidelines, in particular Chapter 4, children's playground is one of the mainstream recreational facilities. The standard is that we should provide 400 meters squares facility for every 5,000 citizens. In order to provide better living environment, the government is going to enhance the planning standards for open space. And the children's play facilities are mainly located in the open space sites. So we're going to examine the supply of children's play facilities. When we design the open spaces, we'll take into account the guidelines of the planning standards. We'll take into account a number of factors like the topography of the site, the area, the actual circumstances, and relevant international safety standards, the needs of users as well as the views of stakeholders, so that we can come up with an overall design concept, and we will put in place different facilities and movable components. We will actively consider the installation of more creative equipment so as to meet the demands of the citizens. For the housing authority, at the time of planning for new public housing, we'll take into account the requirements of the planning standards, and then for each tenant or each resident, there will be 1 meter squares local open space, and then there will be no less than 400 meter squares children's playground for every 5,000 residents. The housing authority will try its best to put together the children's playground as well as other recreational facilities so that we can honor the idea of community playground, and then different users can enjoy together in an inclusive and harmonious manner. For the maintenance and repair of the playgrounds in public housing estates, that's the responsibility of the housing authority. When there's a need to improve or replace them, the housing authority will look at the demographical changes, the usage patterns, site constraints, as well as future repair and maintenance needs. It will also take into account the design guidelines of the ASD in relation to children's play spaces, as well as the LCSD's transformation program, so that the playgrounds will be more creative and interesting. The HA will also the housing department will also consult the views of the residents as well as the stakeholders, so that there will be a suitable and safe environment for the play equipment. For properties divested by the housing authority, like the public properties, they are subject to the regulations of relevant laws and lease conditions. When owners operate their properties, they must abide by the relevant requirements in the laws, like the building ordinance, as well as lease conditions, if there are any. And the lease conditions would differ, so some of them would also have a say on the usage of land or the land zoning, and certain floor area would be needed for certain facilities. Owners must meet the requirements. For private projects, generally speaking, we will allow the developers to build and provide their own recreational facilities, and that would not be counted towards the gross floor area. Many developers have already got their own children play facilities. They are provided by developers on their own, not as part of the specific requirements of land sale. Generally speaking, open-air play venues would not be counted towards the gross floor area. To encourage the provision of public podium gardens within private projects, as well as covered landscape gardens and play facilities, if the facilities meet the relevant requirements, they would also have concessions in relation to the gross floor area. Mr. President, or rather, Madam Deputy, I know many members are interested in the topic. They have a lot to say, and there will be valuable comments. I'll listen carefully to them, and then I will come back to a final reply. Thank you.
Ms. Yuen Seong, Madam Deputy, I'd like to first thank Ms. Nixie LAM for moving her motion on comprehensive improvement of Hong Kong's play equipment for children. I also support the motions as amended by Mr. Bill Tang and Mr. Leung Man-kwong. Ms. Lam's original motion pointed out that Hong Kong's play equipment for children are overly homogeneous and lacking fun, and these playgrounds are not challenging at all. I'm a mother of two, and during holidays, we would visit different playgrounds. We visited playgrounds in Wanchai Central and Taikushing. The designs are all very similar, and the combinations all look the same. And there is a glaring lack of challenge for children. For a 2-year-old kid who is about a meter tall, most of the slides are less than 2 meters long. So there's a lack of fun even for a 2-year-old. Like the secretary said, if we are to provide play equipment, apart from catering for children aged 0 to 5 and 5 to 12, the designs do not really make much sense. I imagine you would not be providing equipment for those under the age of 1, but by the time children reach the age of 2 or 3, they would find the facilities boring. So for those under the age of 12, they could only enjoy the facilities for a year. So if you want to increase the element of fun and variety, you once held a design competition for inclusive playground design, and you invited views from children aged 8 to 12, and the result was a Twin Moon Park with a brand new design. So you could collect the views of the actual users on what they actually need. So such designs are completely different from the modular designs adopted at most playgrounds. At Twin Moon Park, there are different elements such as water and sand, as well as reptile caves, and there are lotus flowers, as well as musical elements, and these would be conducive to children's development. However, outside of Twin Moon Park, we are yet to see any inclusive children's playgrounds in Hong Kong. Twin Moon Park opened in December 2017, so it has been nearly 5 years. The government said they have been working with district councils and different organizations, but we have not been seeing any tangible results. Going forward, how can the government invite views from parents, children, and on the district level? That would be essential. According to the UNCRC, or the United Nations Convention on the Rights of the Child, we must ensure that our children could play and they should fully enjoy themselves. Thank you.
Ms. Lighton Kwok. Thank you, Madam Deputy. As mentioned in the original motion, the 2019 policy address proposes that it will draw reference from the experience of modifying the children's playground in Twin Moon Park and plan to modify more than 170 public play spaces. We find that the government could just forget about its promise. For example, the promise on a jumbo floating restaurant, has not been made good. But anyway, I'm glad to see that government still proceeding with plan to modify play spaces. According to the latest information from the LCSD, for 170 public space, play spaces covered. Works are started in some of these play spaces. I agree. We have little living space, so public play facilities are particularly important. This is a place where children could have fun and relax. Now, I'm sure you agree is a good thing that we enhance our play facilities. It's a matter of how we put money to good use. Now, originally, the plan for 170 public play spaces is some $86 billion, and I find that in LCSD, they have play facilities in over a few hundred places. So that means we have to spend another $2 billion if we want to modify all public play spaces. That's just a rough estimate. If we want an accurate estimate, we'll have to leave it to the government. In any case, the government does not have, much reserve. And if we want to extend the entire scheme to the whole territory, we really have to consider if there are other projects with more urgency first. For play facilities in public housing estates, in particular, the older estates, the design of many of the play equipment is outdated and is not fun, and also some of the facilities are in a state of disrepair. The Ombudsman conducted an investigation previously. Now, the report shows that many of the play facilities are often in repair. One reason is because they have too few contractors. As at September 2020, there are just 7 eligible contractors. Well, there is actually a policy of the Housing Authority for repair to be done by the original contractor. And these repair contractors must be on the list of approved agents and distributors of such products. Of course, there's a historic reason for that, because in the 70s or 90s, some contractor was unable to secure parts from the original and manufacturer, so they used other parts, and eventually the facilities became unsafe. But now, is this policy still valid for playgrounds under the management of the LCSD? If how can they ensure that original parts are used, or if original parts are not available, how do they ensure the safety of these equipment? The government gave a reply previously. At the time, the then Secretary for Home Affairs said, for SMEs and startup companies, they are very creative. The LCSD welcomes eligible SMEs and startup companies or other companies with experience to be involved in the modification of public play spaces. I hope the government will deliver on that. They will engage more different contractors to be involved in these projects. And then when they review the effectiveness of the program, they will including the list on the list companies with successful experience, so that we could meet the needs for public play facilities of by the community. Mr. Chu Kwok-keung. I support the Ms. Nixie LAM's original motion and the amendments. Many studies show that during the development stage of children, play is an important function. It helps to build their physical strengths and also the character. So that's why in kindergartens, playing is takes up a substantial ratio of class hours. Now, play facilities in Hong Kong performing the functions. Now, there are many, in the LCSD, they only use a modular play equipment. This is the playground from the point of view of adults. And most of these are just prefabricated modular equipment. The design is monotonous and it's not fun. It cannot really arouse interest in children. Why is that? because the government only considers the management needs and their mindset is too narrowly cast, they put constraints on educational elements. For example, we could consider children's interaction with sandpit, water, and so on. And then for most play spaces in Hong Kong, they don't consider the needs of children with different abilities, including children with varying degrees of disability. So it's actually depriving these children of their basic right to enjoy play facilities. So the government needs to form near, mid, and long-term objectives. They should progressively improve both indoor and outdoor play facilities of the LCSC, and they should include children's development needs as one of the goals. And they should also seize upon the opportunities of urban renewal projects and the Northern Metropolis Development Strategy. And then they should review the reference building standards and guidelines, and they can make the most of public spaces to improve play facilities. In terms of venue and equipment design, they must put children first. These facilities must be creative. They have to consider the different stages of development of children. They have to consider the needs of the local communities. They have to consider the parenting aspect and even the educational aspects. For example, values, STEM, environmental protection, sustainable development, and so on. All these factors should be included. If different playgrounds or playrooms will have different themes, I think that's something people will welcome. I hope the government will collect views from stakeholders in planning and designing play facilities. And also the average usage rate of these facilities should be an indicator in measuring the effectiveness of their policies. Now, must play facilities be located in parks or indoor games halls? No. That's an old mindset. The government should make reference to the practices in other countries. Play facilities could also be placed in, say, the urban areas and so on. Finally, I hope the government will listen to members' views and improve children's play facilities across the territory. They should also step up publicity promotion so the public would know that play facilities also carry an educational element. And then people will be drawn to use these facilities more, and then we could ensure the balanced and diversified development of children. Thank you. Mr. Edward Leung. I speak in support of the motion. I met a colleague outside, and he said, well, are you going to speak? I said, yes. Well, great, because you haven't got children yet. And once you have children, then you know that in the next few years, all you think about is where you could take your children to play. So you're not just speaking up for the public, you're speaking up for yourself as well. So that's why this motion is not just about our children, it's also about adults, and with far-reaching impact on our future generations. So I would like to thank Ms. Nixie LAM for giving us this opportunity to explore the issue. Now, to many people's view, play facilities are just for playing by children, but actually that will have great impact on children's development in terms of their social skills, courage, or abilities to overcome challenges and so on. It will all be very helpful. Well, I'm sure many of us have our characters shaped in some way by our own experience playing at playgrounds. For example, I like to play with the climbing frames. Initially, I could only just climb for a short while, and then I fell, and then I wouldn't give up. I wanted to make sure I could climb further, and then I saw other children manage to do that, so I worked harder, and eventually I managed to climb more bars. And then some children said, some colleagues said to me, you have muscles on your arms. Perhaps that's to do with my play experience when I was a child. And in the past year or two, because of the pandemic, we could see the more clearly the importance of play facilities on the mental and physical development of children. Now, because playgrounds are closed, so children not able to play with others, and then they're even for those age under 18, they missed out on the golden period for their physical development. Don't underestimate the importance of swings. Swings is very important for training balance, the sense of balance and speed. And I hope you will all agree that the play facilities are not just about playing. Unfortunately, in recent years, even the play facilities are even doing their job in allowing children to play. They are criticized as monotonous and not fun, so children rather stay home to play with video games than to go to the park. Why is that the case? Well, the research report of LEUNG in 2017 showed that 99.2% of the slides in public play spaces is just 2 meters long, so people will reach the ground in just 1 second. It's not at all exciting. When we were young, we had long and tall slides made of metal, and then when we sat on the slide, it's so hot, it's exciting. But now the facility is not so much fun anymore. Of course, when children with children facilities, there's a balance between promoting children's development and ease of management. And it seems that now the department is focusing more on ease of management. And when we consider the development of children, we must not overlook the importance of good play facilities. And we have to consider the original intention of providing play facilities is certainly not about making it easy for the government to manage these facilities. So in terms of design, we have to consider more the children's angle. For example, the Tuen Mun Park community built project is a good demonstration. It's very popular among children, and parents. Is rated the best playground with water and so on. Is no longer a monotonous design of just plastic play equipment. Now the park is successful because starting from the design stage as in community involvement, children gave their views, even disabled children gave their views, and their views were taken very seriously. So it's definitely a park built with users' input. And now in the past, when we say a park is successful, it's because children think it's fun. So with other community building, we have to consider the views of residents. So how come when it comes to building a park, we don't get collective views of children? Many say that we need to make sure children develop properly. For those who can afford it, if a park is not fun, they could send the children playrooms and paying the fees. But then for the grassroots families, they couldn't afford to do so. So I think adults should do more for children. Thank you.
Ms. Doreen Kong. Madam Deputy, I support Ms. Nixie LAM's motion and also the amendments by Mr. Tang, Ka-piu, and Mr. Man-kwong. Play equipment is most important for the development of children. Article 31 of the Convention of Child by UN said that the child has the right to leisure and play, and is most important for the social and physical and cognitive development of children. Hong Kong is a crowded place, and outdoor playing areas are limited, and so children's playground are most important. The play equipment for children are rather monotonous in design. When building playgrounds, the government usually go for low cost, low risk, and easy to management design concepts. They have deviated from the goal of providing play equipment, and that is to provide equal opportunities for play for different children. LCSD is managing children playgrounds. There are three big problems. First, uneven distribution of public playgrounds. I think equal opportunities for play is just as important as equal opportunity for education. According to a research, the distribution of public playgrounds is very uneven, and Ms. Lam has quoted the difference between that for Central and Western District and Kwai Tsing. Now, there There's also insufficient provision of playground. Many of them do not provide climbing frames and slides, and the variety is limited. And the third problem is monotonous design of playground. As mentioned by members, a good playground should provide a variety of experience and a stimulation to various senses, and should also blend in with the surrounding environment. Our play equipment attaches significance to safety, and the design is simple, and they would become boring very soon. In other countries, they want to become a child-friendly place, and they have lots of good experience for us to learn from. For example, Singapore attaches a lot of significance to harmony between human beings and the environment, and so they have this biofeeling design, and they let people to get close to the natural environment. There are various facilities to facilitate children with different needs. For instance, wheelchair-friendly swings. And then there is also the co-development of children playground between the public and private sector. In Florida, they spent $20 million to turn 40 odd deserted school campuses to become interesting playground for children, and that was completed by Colorado government. We have a long way to go before providing interesting play equipment for our children. We should review the overall situation of children playgrounds managed by LCSC. We should learn from overseas experience and enhance the awareness of playground, and also provide more resources. I urge the administration to listen to the aspirations and needs of children and parents, so that we can be an international child-friendly city. Thank you. Mr. Lillian Kwok. Thank you, Madam Deputy. There are many experts, including educators, child psychologists, who are of the view that play is essential to children. Children's character is developed in the course of play, and therefore play is most important in the psychological development of children. I'm grateful to Ms. Nixie LAM for moving this motion on comprehensive improvement of Hong Kong's play equipment for children. According to LCSC, as at the 31st of March, we have 14 more new playgrounds compared with last year. And in the Policy Address 2019, we're told that it would take the government 5 years to modify more than 170 public play spaces. And public engagement exercise is being run for the modification of these play spaces. This goes to show that the government understands that there is a lot of room for improvement in our public play spaces, and they should be enhanced. In recent years, we have seen how the government has tried to increase diversity and attractiveness of our children playground to make them more suitable for our children. Children should be the center of our public play spaces. This is most important for the disadvantaged and children who live in subdivided units. Free urban children playgrounds are places they can go to most often, where they can play and have interaction with their peers. So I have some suggestions to the original motion for the administration to consider. We keep saying that the design of parks should be in line with the development needs of children. According to Piaget, there are 4 stages of development, of cognitive development. And then some other experts have also done some experiments on promoting growth of children by means of play. And this goes to show that play is most important. For instance, for young infants, they like a simple and natural elements and participation in play. For instance, even flowers and plants in nature can attract their attention. And for older kids, they like man-made environment. They have strong curiosity, and they like to explore. They like stimulation and games. Now, children have a strong sense of curiosity. So when we design play equipment, we should take into account the cognitive and psychological development of children. We can further stimulate their curiosity and promote growth. Some play equipment is also important to the physical development of children. For instance, climbing flames can train their muscles and also help the coordination of gross motor and fine motor development. So comprehensive play equipment can promote the physical and psychological development of children. While the government has paid more attention to the design of playground, most of them are just the modular design. They are monotonous and they are not attractive. Since some playground and their facilities are being modernized, the government should grasp this opportunity and design attractive and a diversity of play equipment that are attractive to our children. As I said, the design of play equipment should suit the development needs of children. The global trend is to blend with the nature, and there should not be a tangible design. And for instance, sand pits is a good example. It doesn't take a specified form. There is sufficient room and space for children to play. I'm pleased to see that we have got some play equipment on our beaches. Imagination is most important. So I hope we can have a free play design for children to develop their imagination. Now, children can play, can learn what they play. So I hope we can pay more attention to the design of play equipment. Thank you. Ms. Judy Chan, I cannot agree with Ms. Nixie LAM more. This is not really a subject for districts. Rather, it's about the comprehensive development of children, because community facilities must be people-oriented before they can promote comprehensive development. And then facilities can suit the needs of our people. I'm grateful to Ms. Lam for this motion on comprehensive improvement of Hong Kong's play equipment for children, and I also support amendments by the other members. According to Article 31 of the UN Convention for the Child has the right to leisure and play, and adults have the duty to allow at least 1 hour of free play for every child. They should be allowed to move around, and that can also enrich their childhood. In the past couple of years, because of COVID-19, more children are spending more time at home, and they have less time and opportunities to play outdoors, to interact with their peers. To ensure the right to play of our child, we must ensure that play is child-centered, and there must we should allow free play at any time, and to provide a happy childhood, because play can help to tackle obesity, promote emotional growth, and also enhance the ability to learn. And so play can offer a lot of benefits to our children. Hong Kong is a crowded city. We have limited outdoor space for our children to play, and therefore the design of play areas is to provide outdoor play equipment to engage our children in play. So playgrounds in the district are valuable and important resources for our children. The children's playground in Tuen Mun Park has incorporated the views of children, the local community, and with input from professionals. The result is well received. Many parents take their children to enjoy the park on holidays. In the Policy Address 2019, the government announced that 170 public play spaces will be modified. And in the process, there will be community participation to make our facilities more innovative and fun and to meet the needs of the community. The LCSD has invited children from different districts in essay and drawing competitions to let them air their views about the design of public play spaces. Take the Southern District's example. We have a competition to invite children to express their views. Many entries include the dream play areas of children. They are telling us what they want, and that is also a display of the imagination. Very often, in improving public play spaces, very often we've overlooked the views and also the feelings of our children. The government, when designing public play spaces, they can learn from the design concept or Tianbai flyover. Now, they should look at the city at the eye level of a child, which is around 1 meter, so that we can have a healthy living environment for our children, so they develop a sense of happiness, and Hong Kong can be a child-friendly city. With these remarks, I support the motion and all amendments. Thank you.
Mr. Edmund Wong. Thank you, Madam Deputy. Just now, Ms. Judy Chen said that children should be allowed freedom to play at least for an hour. For such a slogan, I think we're all familiar with it. In fact, for UNICEF, he has come up with this slogan. It shows that play is important for the mental, physical, and emotional development of our children. They are our future masters. We need to provide them with interesting facilities. It means that it has a bearing on whether they have a happy childhood and whether they can develop properly. I'm grateful to Nixie for moving this motion so that we can work together to fight for the well-being of our children. I'm not yet married. Of course, I don't have any children. But then I have many colleagues who are parents. In fact, they are the users of the playgrounds in Hong Kong. I sounded out their ideas about our playgrounds. The reaction was that currently the equipments are grossly inadequate. In 2017, there was this information note from the LEUNG researchers. I won't go into the details, but then they say that it lacks new ideas, boring, uninteresting, not exciting at all. When parents take their children to the playgrounds for the first or second time, the children are happy, but then usually after that they will say that that's too boring, the slides are too short, too slow, and then the playgrounds would only allow children to walk up and down the playstations. I try to recall my experience when I was young. There were the monkey bars, there were rope nets, there were slides for me to ride on together with my friends. At that time, the metal slides were rather tall, more slippery, and the speed was much quicker. I can still remember that the metal surface of such long slides were really steamingly hot when it was summer. That's more playable and more interesting. Mr. President, play equipment may cause injuries to the children. So whenever there is a reform, then safety would be given the utmost priority. I can appreciate the good intentions of the authority, but then if you emphasize safety, you should at the same time consider playability and also the degree of excitement. My assistant told me that when she took her children to places like Australia or other places, their playstations are always safe and interesting. In Japan, they have extra long, super long slides, and they're very popular with children. Let me show you some photographs. This is a play equipment in Australia. It attracts both children and adults alike. And then the super long slide in Japan. It is very interesting. It is very attractive. Again, it creates the bonding between parents and children. Now let's come back to a common slide in Hong Kong. Well, probably a child is taller than this slide. So it's just unimaginable as to how you can go down such a short slide. Now parents won't mind traveling a long way to go overseas to take your children to such place areas. I think all around Hong Kong, I think our play spaces are unattractive and monotonous in the design. Of course, we can learn from the successful experience of Tuen Mun Park. We should work among departments and we should try to add special features to make the play spaces attractive. We should strike a balance between being interesting and being safe. And then we can enable children to acquire different skills like problem solving. Well, living space is already very limited in Hong Kong. If we don't make use of the play spaces to give children a happy childhood, then no one would be able to live in Hong Kong happily. We would like to give a happy childhood to our younger generation. Parents would also want to have good bonding with their children out of it. I support the original motion as well as the two amendments. Ms. Lam Shu Wai. Thank you, Mr. President. I'm grateful to Nixie for moving this motion on comprehensively improving the children's play equipment. Summer is around the corner. It's time for us to go out to play. Well, play is important for social skills, physical, mental, and emotional development. Nowadays, children would rather stay with their electronic devices than go out to play. What's the problem? What is the way forward? For a playground, of course, it has to be playful, interesting, exciting. But then the government thinks otherwise. It is mainly managed by either the LCSD or the housing department. We have standard modules, durable, safe, repair and maintenance friendly. But then the disadvantage is that it is too monotonous. It is not exciting, not interesting at all. 99% of the slides are below a height of 2 meters. For the children who are older, they are not attractive at all. A playground has to be playful. So if it is uninteresting, then you are putting the cart before the horse and it's no longer meaningful. For the laws in Hong Kong, we haven't got a specific piece of legislation or any specific set of guidelines for playgrounds. Since 1982, when the housing department started building the playgrounds, the Hong Kong Planning Standards and Guidelines were being observed. There is 0.08 meters square per person, but then we lack a standard throughout Hong Kong, and then the distribution of the playgrounds is uneven. Larger parks are of course popular, smaller ones are unattractive. So many parents have to go to other districts to go to a larger park. And the government fails to take the initiative to find out from the users like parents and children about their views. The support facilities are inadequate, they're not inclusive, and such are the common shortfalls. Repairs and maintenance are untimely, and in fact many metal parts have become rusty. And sometimes as a result of failure to maintain and repair the broken parts, they have to be suspended from use for a long time. But then lately, the government has been thinking out of the box. In 2018, at III.Motion Park, we have the inclusive children's playground. It is against the convention that we used to see, and it is highly popular. The government will continue with this effort. $700 million will be spent on 170 public play spaces. For this transformation exercise, let me share with you my observations. We need to have new ideas and new standards. Say, for example, the per capita area, and we need to be inclusive so that children and parents should also be allowed a chance to have a say on the design. All the components should be more interesting. And then for new housing developments, both public and private, there should be the provision of children's play spaces. Management should also be enhanced. And then adventure playgrounds, popular overseas, allow children to take the initiative to come up with creative games with their peers, and they can make use of the materials nearby to create their own toys. Well, I think it is a good idea for us to consider. We can enhance the elements of adventure. Natural elements should also be included, and children should be allowed the freedom to take the initiative to design their own games. In Chang Kwan O, we have got a vacant site lying idle for 30 years, and it's in Choking Lane. You can make use of this idle site to come up with a good children's play space. Well, Hong Kong is subject to inclement weather. Maybe we should have more children's play rooms which are indoor. At the same time, for indoor games centers, there should be other facilities for children to play as well, so that we won't be sort of prevented from playing just because of the bad weather. Sometimes we tend to forget the needs of the children. I find it good to see a change in the thinking of the government. Let's hope that we will move forward so that children would be free from worries when they play. Please stop. Your time is up. Mr. Kenneth Leung, I'm grateful to Nixie for moving the motion, as well as the other two members for moving amendments. Hong Kong has very limited space for work and for living. So children really look forward to the time every day when they can freely run around and play in whatever way they like. It isn't just a matter of having children's play spaces for people to relax. In fact, they can train their motor skills. They can stimulate their cognitive functions. In the midst of the pandemic, when children go to a playground, they can spend time with their parents, they can make new friends, they can have social interactions with their neighbors. So it is important for them to develop such a circle of friends before they get glued onto Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, etc. I'm a father. I can tell from my experience. Some playgrounds are boring and nothing else. In terms of safety and easy management, well, we score high on such fronts. But then the design has overlooked the needs of the children. Our playgrounds are too conservative and they're not exciting at all. While we have to safeguard the safety of the children, we mustn't forget other elements. Say, for example, they have to be challenging, interesting, inclusive, diverse, and incorporating elements of the nature. We can have different forms of playground, free play, adventure, or playing in the natural environment. This can give an rich experience to our children. Just now, many members have already spoken, and we can tell from our experience that we have seen signs of progress in the designs. An outstanding example would be the inclusive playground in III.Motion Park. And then it is important to incorporate the views of the children. We should also come up with new facilities that are inclusive, catering for the different needs of people of different physical conditions. Sand, water, and other natural elements should be added so that children can become creative and imaginative, and they can also take the initiative to make transformation to convert what's already there. Maybe we can even go a step further. That is, we can incorporate certain STEAM concepts, and then they can learn while playing, and then we can nurture the talents that we need for our future. For the II.Motion Park, I know that you have got something like a shower in the form of a flower at different height levels. Maybe the top one can be painted in the form of rainfall and clouds, and there should be more devices so that children can make a decision to change the flow of the water, and then perhaps we can instill the ideas of recycling of water. Lastly, I hope the LCSD would expedite the transformation of our public play spaces, give our children an interesting playground, while it is also a place which is safe for social interaction. Thank you.
Mr. Gary Chang, President, in terms of enhancing and modifying Hong Kong's play equipment, Ms. Nixie LAM and other members talked about II.Moon Park, which was indeed a success case. I would bring my children there in our free time. There's sand, there's water, and there is a reptiles cave, and I'm sure many parents and children would enjoy the space. For the NGO responsible for the project, they now plan to convert the cover of a pumping station near Laguna City of Kwun Tong to a children's playground with 5 different themed areas featuring themes such as land, water, etc. And there will be different types of equipment to cater for children and adults of different ages. I agree with Ms. Lam that such modification works should be extended to children's playgrounds in government-managed housing estates. Ms. Lam also talked about revising the Hong Kong planning standards and guidelines, and adequate resources will be provided and more facilities would be provided at public spaces, idle land, and harbourfront promenades. In terms of the planning process in Hong Kong, there is a lack of attention on play spaces as well as open space. At Cha Kwa Lang, a site is available for promenade development, but the plan was cancelled in recent years. It shows a lack of attention on children-related facilities in our planning process. Hopefully, the government will reconsider such plans, and that is why I welcome Ms. Nixie LAM's motion. Hopefully, it can urge government departments to pay more attention to the physical and mental well-being of children. I speak in support of Ms. LAM's motion as well as the motions as amended by Mr. Man-kwong and Mr. Ka-piu. Mr. Tony Chair, my sector has always placed an emphasis on making Hong Kong more livable, and this includes the provision of sufficient play spaces and open space to cater for the well-being of children of different ages. We often talked about the success example of the inclusive playground at II.Moon Park. It involves a prominent local architect, and in terms of the development of public play spaces, myself and the trade were involved. The then Secretary for Home Affairs was invited to an exchange session, and we had a discussion on how we can reinforce and enhance our play spaces. And some ideas included holding design competitions, lowering the time and cost for maintaining such facilities. The original motion proposed a number of positive ideas, but we must bear in mind the different repercussions. For facilities at public housing estates, some estates have outdated facilities that were not properly maintained. Some underutilized playgrounds could be converted into fitness equipment or facilities for the elderly, and that might be a better idea. As for the proposal to revise the Hong Kong planning standards and guidelines, we must consider changes to Hong Kong's demographics and potential changes going forward, and we must consider whether we have sufficient land and the financial implications of such proposals. As for the proposal to impose land sale conditions and improving building guidelines to introduce suitable play equipment for children, I have my reservations over this proposal. The pace for housing development in Hong Kong is slowing down and the costs are rising. In terms of the outline zoning plans, land sale conditions, and relevant building guidelines, they are becoming more and more complicated and rigid. The relevant provisions have not been streamlined, and the result is rising costs and a longer timeline for development, and creativity from the sector would also be stifled. Many people criticize play equipment for children as being too boring or homogeneous, and that was the result of the bureaucracy within the government. And some housing estates lack relevant facilities due to a lack of space. They would have to choose between parking spaces and play facilities, for example, and the development of such might lead to higher costs. And only residents of housing estates could enjoy such facilities. Is this something we want to see? I heard that a number of members focus on public playgrounds managed by the government, and that is why I have my reservations over Ms. Nixie Lam's original motion. Mr. Louis Leung. President, I thank Ms. Nixie Lam for proposing her original motion. Article 31 of the United Nations Convention on the Rights of the Child points out that children are entitled to play and leisure, and they should enjoy activities that are suitable for their age. I would like to offer 3 observations over play equipment in Hong Kong. First, the quantity of such equipment. In the 2019 policy address, the chief executive announced that a 5-year plan would commence to modify more than 170 public open spaces. In the first 2 years, however, the government only pursued 17 and 26 such projects respectively, or 1/4 of the total. Hopefully, the government would catch up in the next 3 years in order to complete the target. Currently, there are more than 670 play facilities managed by the LCSD. They are mainly designed for children aged 4 to, well, for playrooms designed for those aged 4 to 9. There are only 41, and on average, there are less than 3 playrooms per district, which is totally insufficient. Even though many clubhouses in private residential developments provide playrooms for their residents, the government should still take care of children living in public housing estates or private residential developments without a clubhouse. That is why I support Mr. Bill Tang's amendment in that the government should introduce more playrooms as soon as possible. When it comes to inclusive facilities, about 70% of LCSD managed playgrounds feature inclusive facilities that cater for children of different ages and abilities, which is certainly good to see. However, many parents have to go to work, and very often children are being taken care of by their grandparents. In other words, the elderly are the ones who are bringing children to the playground. That is why playgrounds should offer appropriate facilities so that while children enjoy play, the more senior carers can also take a rest. Playgrounds offer vast spaces for children to play and make new friends. However, in the past 2.5 years, because of COVID, public playgrounds were often closed and children were forced to stay at home. Their living spaces were limited, and that made it difficult for the parents as well. In drawing up anti-epidemic measures in the future, the government should strive to keep the playgrounds open, and appropriate guidelines should be drawn up, and to urge carers as well as venue administrators to maintain the hygiene of the spaces. In terms of how children can play, appropriate playground designs would be conducive to appropriate play for the children. Children love running around and chase after one another, or skate or use their scooters. So long as we exercise our creativity, playgrounds would make ideal play spaces for children. Apart from introducing more play facilities, the government should provide sufficient space for children to engage in free play. Thank you.
Mr. Vincent Zhang. Thank you. President, I would like to thank Ms. Nixie LAM of the DAB for moving this motion. This allows us the opportunity to discuss this issue of great interest to parents and children. In the past few years, I'm particularly concerned about this issue too. 5 years ago, in 2017, together with some parents and women's groups, we held a press conference, and we announced a study report on the play facilities in Kowloon District. We went to visit many LCSD venues and parks, and a number of major issues were raised. We hope there will be improvement. First, for many of the children's play facilities, the design is so monotonous, so it's like a modular design, so it's almost the same in every district, exactly the same slide, swing, and so on. And I remember in Nixie LAM's III.Motion district, there was several dozens of such the same facilities. So it's not appealing to children, and it's not creative, and it won't meet the needs of children of different ages. And second major issue is that most of the facilities are rather old, especially in the public housing estates. Many of these facilities are out of date or they are in disrepair. And it took a month or even every 6 months. The wait is measured by every 6 months. So it waits forever for the parts to arrive, say from Germany and the UK and whatever. Well, LCSD venues are actually much better. For public housing estates, this condition is even worse. So I believe there's room actually to do more. Now, I grew up in Nam Shan Estate. Many people like to go to Nam Shan Estate to take photos, and there's plenty of space there. But then even for the play facilities, they are from the 1980s or 90s. So here we're talking about precious public space. Shouldn't we build more interesting play facilities there? The third question is about making improvement, especially we don't have enough playgrounds and parks. As many colleagues said, we don't have many themed parks or playgrounds. So children, find it really boring to go to these facilities. Of course, we want there to be people at the playgrounds, so it won't feel so deserted. But at the same time, we don't want playgrounds to be packed. So there's plenty of room for improvement in this respect. I could see in the past few years the government has been trying to do something, especially for the Tuen Mun Park, the first community-built park. Now I went to this park to see what it's like. It's very popular with children, I can see. Well, they use sand, water, and they add other elements to the park, so it's rather unique. Even for Sham Shui Po residents, they don't get to. They're not near the beach, so if there's sand and water in Tuen Mun Park, many people are drawn there from other districts. So that's why we've been saying the government should do a few more parks like that. And then at the time, Mr. Lau Kong-wah was the Secretary for Home Affairs, we visited the Tuen Mun Park. We wanted to become an inclusive park. And then in 2019, the government took on board our views, and they proposed to modify 170 LCSD managed parks. The Sham Shui Po Park will be the second inclusive park. I learned from the Secretary that the park's almost ready. But then if there are just 2 such parks, are they enough? It seems that they're not. So Ms. Nixie LAM's moved this motion today. Hopefully we could bring about improvement to those facilities, and at the same time, we hope the LCSD will be able to work on more parks, apart from Sham Shui Po Park, Yao Qing Mong Park, Sai Kung Park, Shuning Road Park, and so on. Many parks are waiting for modification. And finally, these parks are actually competing with amusement game center for business. If children find parks boring, they rather play with video games. Yes, they may be able to learn something from video games, but if there is a way where people could meet face to face and play together, I think it's good for children's development. Now, during the pandemic, I visited households, SDU households. They told me their children haven't been out for 3 months. It really affects their development. So we should encourage mothers to take their children to the park. And I'm sure such activities would benefit the development of children. That's why I support the original motion and all the amendments. Thank you. Mr. Stephen Ho. Thank you. President, I thank Mr. Vincent Zhang for his speech. He is the father of a few children. I don't have any children myself. Now for Ms. Nixie LAM's motion, we really have to think about it. When I was in primary school, when I was in primary 3 or primary 4, there's a small playground before school. There's a merry-go-round, I remember. And then eventually the merry-go-rounds vanished, maybe 10 or 20 years or so after my primary 3. It's because it's considered dangerous and it could cause trouble, so they just remove it. It's like long slides. Next, the long slides were the one to disappear because they're too long and dangerous. So eventually all dangerous facilities are removed. At the end, that's what we get. Well, this is a photo taken by Mr. Edmund Wong. So this is the kind of slide you see now. For children, if you just give them space to run around, it's good enough. So they could use up their energy. Before in the past, we have, community centers. We don't have so many welfare facilities, and parents had to go to work. So children just went to a community hall, and they could borrow table tennis equipment. They could play table tennis, or there's a small billiard table, and they could play with other children. It's a way for them to interact with other children. But nowadays, apart from slides like this, which gets shorter and shorter, even for parents, we should be held responsible too, because we're being overly protective of children. But of course, in my days, my parents had to work, so they didn't have time for me, and so we were left on our own, and then we were able to grow up properly. But then when children are overly protected, they won't be able to face adversity later on in life. So there's a need for a balance. And the government is doing a lot because they're afraid of criticisms or complaints from parents. As Mr. Vincent Zhang said, all the slides are the same, and it's the same for basketball reports and so on as well. Well, sports have an element of danger. Imagine a marathon, even running for 40 kilometers, people could die in the course of that. Say if there's a sport or child facilities that there's a danger of loss of life, then would you encourage people to use the facilities or do the sports? So why is the government choosing for overprotection of children? It's because the government is worried. So it's about the parents' attitude then. We have to strike a balance. What is the right facilities for children? For slides like this, really, no one. Because there's no one supervising children. And how come marathon races could be held? Because there's the whole first aid team, and if something happens, the person will sent to hospital right away. Even for long slides, you can make them safe, like you put a cover on the slides. But the government wouldn't do that. For children these days, they're not like us now. When we were children, we just went out on our own. Our parents wouldn't have time for us. Just now, some members mentioned nowadays it's the grandparents who take children out. And so if they take children out, you have to provide facilities for the grandparents as well. So the grandparents will have the motivation to take the children out as well. So, building the facilities is not the most important thing. Is, encouraging grandparents to take their children out. Maybe grandparents say, I'd rather stay home. We'd rather stay home, so I'll let the grandchildren play with video games at home instead of going out to play. So you have to find make use of other resources. Maybe you could do a pilot scheme. You could ask NGOs or district groups to supervise the playground, and you give them the powers to do their own design that meet the needs of the community. Otherwise, it won't be fun. Even if you just give them open space and let children run around. Maybe in this district, children just love to run around. Then it's good enough. Ms. Chen Hao-Yan. Thank you. I went to playground often because, my family was not well off. So children had nowhere to go but to parks because it's free. We could spend time there. We could run around and play. Parks were happy places for us. We have swings, we have seesaws, we have a very long slides, as Mr. Stephen Ho said. Now the slides may become very hot with the strong sun, but still children love that. It was considered a paradise for children. But now we take children to playgrounds. The play equipment's been upgraded and is more colorful. It looks nicer, but the children are not interested in them. Why? It's because the children now, they have computers, they have mobile phones, they could play anytime with games. Another reason why they're not interested in the play equipment is because they find it really boring. Under the LCST, there are 700 outdoor children's playground for children aged between 2 and 12. And then in the website of the LCST, it say that 70% of the playgrounds have diversified and inclusive play equipment, so they cater to children with disabilities as well. And then while they play there, they could learn different skills, and that will help the balanced development. But that's what's said on the website, but what's the truth? Now, most of the play equipment is a modular equipment bought from outside of Hong Kong. So that's why in the park near you or another park further away, you find the facilities are very similar. because all these play equipment meets international safety standards. But for children who are curious and full of energy, of course, this equipment is not interesting. Take slides for as an example. 90% of the slides are less than 2 meters tall, just like the photo shown to you. 2 years ago, you might recall there's a case. Park has spent some $200,000 on 12 or so horses that look exactly the same. So that means there are over 10 children, all riding this wooden horses in a, facing the same direction. And at the end, what happened? Nobody would ride on these horses. And then in parks, there are so many restrictions. People can't play soccer. They can't ride a bicycle. They can't skate. So that's why parks are not interesting to them. And if you look at overseas places, these days parks include elements of nature and so on. For example, they have pyramid rope facilities, the few meters high. Of course, they have all the safety facilities as well. And then in other places, they have different climbing frames, slides, sand pits, and so on for children. And then there's also nature trail, so children can learn about nature. And then there are the parks facilities are inclusive as well, so children with disabilities may also join in the fun. For example, the Big Shang Mong park in Singapore, children on wheelchair could use their swings and wooden horses. Now, the playground is not just a place for children to spend leisure time. If it's well designed, children could learn while engaging in these activities. It will benefit their development as a whole. In recent years, actually, we do have playgrounds that are well designed. Many members mentioned the Tai-moon Park. The Tai-moon Park has adopted the winning design in a design competition, so there are elements of water, sand, and so on. And then children on wheelchair could also use some of the facilities there. So it's a new generation park. It's a good reference, and we should make good use of it. But then I must stress that the government shouldn't just duplicate or replicate the same park in other places, but rather they have to consider users' views. They should have to collect users' views, and then they could modify playgrounds so each playground is unique. Only then would we attract children to use these facilities, and then we won't be wasting precious land resources. Thank you.
Mr. Lee Chan-kang. Thank you, President. Well, I think we're sharing our memories of play equipment we had when we were young. We'd like to see whether we have new neighbors moving in, and because we can use those packaging material and roll it into rolls and play. Now we like to play soccer, and then we did not have a lawn. We play on sand ground, and we frequently slipped and fell. I had a few stitches on my chin as a result of a fall. I welcome the motion from Ms. Nixie LAM to improve our playground. Why are our children's playgrounds so monotonous? Because we fear. What are we afraid of? We are afraid that children may get hurt. Well, getting hurt is part of the growing up process. Now, if you've never get hurt, then this is not really life. When I went to Japan, I went to play with my children a slide that was tens of meters long. And then when in South Korea, we went to a particular playground to play. We have seen these play equipment in other parts of the world. How come our LCSD do not have similar equipment? I support the LCSD to provide thematic play spaces for children and even for adults like myself that provide challenge and fun. But I said my members' parents are too protective of their children. They will use a third-party liability and to claim the government should there be any injuries. So the government is planning to build a new waterfront promenade at at Western District. It will have a large-scale trampoline. In fact, this is a dangerous or hazardous project because you can have bone fractures and muscle sprain and injury while playing on trampolines. Trampolines should be played under the supervision of experts. Children should not be encouraged to do somersaults on trampolines. There must be people supervising children when they play on trampolines. So LCSD must step up management to ensure that these facilities are safe. So after providing the trampoline, the government has to ensure that people will not engage in dangerous activities and have to ensure that there is third-party liability insurance taken out to avoid unnecessary disputes. And perhaps our parents should be asked to sign a disclaimer so that we can protect the rights of both parties. I hope the government can make our play equipment more innovative and interesting. But they must not overlook the inherent risk. If a certain equipment is risky, then protective measures should be put in place to avoid arguments. Mr. Dominic Lee, thank you. I didn't intend to speak on this motion moved by Ms. Nixie LAM. However, I've got two kids, one aged 5 and another 6. In recent years, I've had the opportunities to visit play equipment with them. A few years ago, there was this report saying that the play equipment in Hong Kong was more homogeneous. That is a fact. Now, whether you talk about Kowloon Park, a very big park, or the play equipment, we have private residential developments or those in public housing development, I think they are very much the same. The playground in Discovery Bay, the beach there may be an exemption. It's quite interesting. And people like to talk about the design in Thailand and in Japan. Their design is excellent. The slides can go all the way from the top of a knoll to the ground. And some people in Hong Kong like to compare our current play equipment with old play equipment, which was more diversified. Indeed, those play equipment lacked protective measures. Usually, it was built in a pool of sand or a sand pit. So, civil servants may have the mentality that they won't be blamed. So they use safety as the paramount consideration. Perhaps we can go further. So long as we have sufficient safety and protective measures in place, we can have more flexibility. I agree with Ms. Lam. My son is now 6 years old. He has found play equipment boring. Take To Yuen Street as an example. There are 2 sets of play equipment, one for toddlers, the other for supposedly bigger kids. But then, even those play equipment cannot satisfy the need of a 6-year-old boy. I think for children of Vincent's children's age, I think they won't find those equipment interesting. So I hope the LCSD will not just consider safety and avoid responsibility. Ms. Nixie LAM, you may now speak on the amendments. I want to thank Mr. TANG Ka-piu and Mr. Man-kwong for amendments to my amendment, and so other members for speaking on this motion. Now, this debate has provided a lot of input for further development of our play equipment. We want an inclusive city, and we should also consider international standards. We should have an educational element, and we should look at the needs of different age group and background. Some members said that the current land sale clauses has made housing construction very slow, but in fact the recreational facilities also form part of our living environment. We want Hong Kong to be a livable city, so play equipment plays an important part. So the Secretary said that we're going to spend $680 million. Ms. Nixie LAM, you are now not responding to the Secretary's speech. Rather, you should comment on the two amendments. Yes. The government should do a bit more, and as legislators, we should provide more suggestions for the government so that Hong Kong can develop even better. We have ample resources in Hong Kong, but we lack planning. Nowadays, we like to talk about result-oriented. My target is very simple. I want Hong Kong children have equal right to play. I don't want children to travel a few hours to play in a playground of another district. I hope our children would not lose out at the starting point when it comes to play. I want to thank the Hong Kong Playground Association and stakeholders for their valuable suggestions. I hope members can support my motion.
Secretary for Home Affairs, Mr. President, members, once again, I would like to thank Ms. Nixie LAM for moving the motion, and Mr. TANG Ka-piu and Mr. Man-kwong for moving the amendments. I would like to thank the other 18 members who have spoken on the comprehensive enhancement of children's play equipment in Hong Kong. Well, members' views touch upon the work of different portfolios under different departments and policy bureaus. I would like to give an overall reply to the main points highlighted in the speeches, and after the meeting, I will refer your views to the relevant bureaus and departments for further action. The Architectural Services Department carried out a consultancy study on the design of play space in LCSD venues so as to review the current practice and come up with design guidelines so as to make public play spaces more attractive, more inclusive, and more interesting so that users can play safely and happily. Play spaces designed later will incorporate the recommendations of the consultants. So the challenges will be of different degrees, there will be different themes, and they will be interesting in their own ways. There will be more natural and environmental protection elements. So the play spaces will be creative, challenging, and educational. For the inclusive playground in Tai Park, it is a cooperation between the LCSD and the SD, and it was based on the winning entry of the Inclusive Ideas competition. It is a pilot project. For the first time, we have incorporated two natural elements of water and sand into the inclusive children play space, so that we have a diversity of facilities that are also inclusive, covering different age groups and children of different abilities. In December 2018, the III.Motion facility was open to users, and it has become hugely popular. In the beginning, the daily usage rate was as many as 2,500 visitors a day. In the light of the favorable response, the administration will transform more of our play spaces. In the 2019 policy address, there was the announcement to transform over 170 public play spaces under the management of the LCSD in a 5-year program to the value of $700 million. In the year 2020-21 and the year 2021-2022, 17 and 26 transformation projects were launched respectively. And then they involve older urban areas where we have a larger number of grassroots residents, like Sham Shui Po Park in Sham Shui Po, Jordan Valley Park in Kwun Tong, Cyclone Street Playground in Yau Chu Mong area, Moss Park in Hong Nai Sin District, as well as Shek Yam Limok Road Park in Kwai Ching District. The first 5 transformation projects are expected to be completed before end of this year, including the first mega public play space in Sham Shui Po Park. The rest will also be launched one after another. For Sham Shui Park, currently the play area is around 1,500 meters square. Upon transformation, it will be substantially increased to 6,400 meters square. According to the findings of a survey, nature and adventure are the most favorable themes for the playground, according to the Sham Shui Po community. Sham Shui Po Park will be an inclusive play space, and in fact the theme will be nature, and then water, sand and plants will be the major design elements. The play space will have different types of swings and slides of different heights, so the users will find it more interesting, and they will have a sort of very free way to play. The play space have got the cargo net, the merry-go-round, trampoline and sensory movable components. There are also the fitness stations as well as an elderly fitness station for other users. So visitors can choose whatever they like according to their preferences and their abilities. And it will be an inclusive facility for the old and the young, the able-bodied and the disabled, as well as different walks of life. In addition, the 2017 policy address proposed a 5-year plan for sports and recreational facilities. 13 out of 26 items included children's play facilities. 4 of them have been opened to the public. In the coming 3 years, 10 more will be commissioned. We'll continue to try hard to have innovative and inclusive elements in our children play spaces. For Kai Tak East Park, this is an example. It has been steered by the Housing Department. We have got an NGO as our consultant. We've invited stakeholders like district councillors, resident representatives, and primary school students from nearby to take part in the design of the park. There are a number of uncommon facilities like the hamster wheel as well as the hanging swinging chairs. And since its opening, the facilities are very popular among the users. And then in 2024, we will complete the expansion of Horizon Park in Kowloon City. You will also get a children play space, and the design theme is ocean, fish and animals, so as to echo the fishtail rock in the park. And the coloring scheme will also bring about a heightened sense of vitality. We are going to uphold the spirit of inclusiveness, catering for the needs of different age groups and children of different needs. The facilities will be innovative, adventurous, interesting, and educational. Children can have different experiences in different zones. There will be a stronger sense of interaction. We'll continue to identify suitable locations so as to put up more innovative play facilities to meet the needs of the citizens. When we plan for the playgrounds, like what Mr. Man-kwong has referred to, the road safety TANG for Sha-Tin Park, we have upgraded the design of the road safety TANG. Children like it very much. The LCSD has been adopting the principle of inclusiveness, being interesting and being innovative. And we would like to be as inclusive as possible so that able-bodied visitors and people with disability, as well as the children, can take part in activities together with other community members. And when we set up the children play areas, we will take care of the needs of children of different ages and different abilities, so that children will have the chance to have social life, and they will equally have a strong sense of safety. Like the swings can cater for both parents and young children, and elderly activity zones will be nearby so that family members can stay together. Some members have suggested that the transformation scheme for public play spaces should be extended to the children's playrooms or play facilities that are indoors. When the LCSD build new facilities or upgrade existing facilities, that is for the indoor children's playrooms, the same design concepts will be adopted so that we can aim at being creative, challenging, and interesting. But of course, we need to take into account the conditions of the site. The LCSD has been keeping a close contact with the relevant organizations. In the course of design, we do encourage community participation and building consensus. We have engaged professionals to organize workshops as well as other forms of activities to invite input from stakeholders like parents, students, council members, local people, organizations at local level and other NGOs. And we'll listen to their views so that wherever possible, we will incorporate the ideas into our play spaces. At the same time, the LCSD will be holding open design competitions so as to gather the innovative design ideas from professionals in relation to transformation of public play spaces. The open design competition will take place in the second half of 2022. In addition, the LCSD will be providing venue support to NGOs so that they can organize activities in our parks, and then children will have a better experience of playing, and then parents would also know more about quality play. The Housing Authority has been adopting the principle of being no frills and being in line with international safety standards when it comes to the design of children playgrounds. And the ASD's guidelines for the design of children play spaces, as well as the LCSD's concepts of transforming playgrounds, have always been adopted as reference points. Durable materials, repair-friendly materials are their first choice as well. Public activities have been gathered, have been hosted, and the views of the stakeholders have been gathered as well. And then usually the Housing Authority would also try to get the feedback from the visitors. The HA does take the views of the public seriously. And for newly completed housing estates, there is a survey to find out about the views of the users. For major district open space development projects, the designers of the HA will also invite public views so as to create a stronger sense of identity and belongingness. Whenever we upgrade the play facilities in housing estates, the Housing Authority would also collect and listen to the views of the public so as to come up with timely and suitable facilities. Let me thank Ms. Lam, Mr. Tang, and Mr. Leung once again, as well as other members, for moving the motions, amendments, and speaking. In the future, we'll continue to keep up a dialogue with lawmakers as well as local people so as to have a better discussion and exchange of views when it comes to improvement of our children's play equipment. Thank you.
I now call upon Mr. Tang Ka-piu to move an amendment. President, I move my amendment. I propose a question to you that the Honorable Tang Ka-piu's amendment be passed. Will those in favor please raise their hands? Those against please raise their hands. Until the question is agreed by a majority of each of the two groups of members present, I declare the amendment passed. Members have been informed that as Mr. Tang Ka-piu's amendment has been passed, Mr. Man-kwong will not move his amendment. Ms. Nixie LAM, you still have 3 minutes 27 seconds to reply, then the debate will come to a close. Ms. Nixie LAM. President, I thank members for your valuable comments. The Secretary mentioned that in the coming 5 years, the government is going to spend over $600 million to modify 170 public open spaces. That may sound a lot, but this $600 million will mean that there is only $4 million for each park. Well, for II.Motion, it costs us more than $20 million. So whether at the end of the day we have more interesting public play spaces, I really wonder. Now, we have talked a lot about whether we can have better playgrounds. I think the only example we have is II.Motion Park. Children are our future masters. I hope the government can take up the role of the main architect for development of our future generation. Now, please consider the needs of our 18 districts on a macro and micro perspective. We can have special positioning for each district and improve the management and planning of children playground, so that our children will not lose out at the starting point when it comes to a children's playground. I want to thank the Hong Kong Playground Association and also stakeholders and parents who have enriched my first motion debate. Thank you.
I now put the question to you that Ms. Nixie LAM's motion as amended by Mr. Tang Ka-piu be passed. Will those in favor please raise their hands? Those against please raise their hands. I think the question is agreed by a majority of each of the two groups of members present. I declare the motion passed. Members' motion with no legislative